Hello everyone, my name is Isaac Sire, and today I'm going to take a look at the morality of organ transplants according to the Catholic faith. So first, we will be taking a look at the primary reference for Catholic morality, the Catechism. And so the Catechism says quite explicitly, organ transplants are in conformity with the moral law if the physical and psychological dangers and risk to the donor are proportionate to the good sought for the recipient. So basically, so long as you are making sure that both parties are safe and that you're not maiming or killing the donor, then it is pretty moral to do so. Organ donation after death is a noble and meritorious act and is to be encouraged as an expression of generous solidarity. So post-mortem organ transplants are not considered immoral. If there is no consent, however, then it is considered immoral as that violates the sanctity of the body and the temple of the Holy Spirit. Moreover, it is not morally admissible to bring about the disabling, mutilation, or death of a human being, even in order to delay the death of other persons. So, even if, giving a kidney to someone would save their life, it's still not moral to kill someone else, take their kidney, and then give it to that person, because that other person still had the right to live. If it was a complication of, say, the surgery to extract the kidney and then give it to the other person, and it was not intended in any way, then it's a little more complicated. But it was good intentions versus killing someone, so it's more morally permissible. Now, here's a fun question. Cannibalism is sort of a form of organ donation if you think about it way too hard and at the same time don't think about it at all. Because you're giving organs to another person. You're giving your muscle organs and your skin organs to another person. So can cannibalism be considered moral? In most cases, no. The bodies, so for an alive person, there would be serious disabling and mutilation if you were to take a bite out of someone, even if there was consent involved. It's not like that stuff's going to grow back easily, and they kind of need, their flesh and muscles and skin. But even with dead bodies, most cases, no. The bodies of the dead must be treated with respect and charity, in faith and hope of the resurrection. The burial of the dead is a corporal work of mercy. It honors the children of God who are temples of the Holy Spirit. And that was from the Catechism. So basically, even though they're dead, they still need to be treated with respect and charity, like all human beings, because they were, and technically still are, a temple of the Holy Spirit. It technically is not actually immoral to eat human meat. It is just that in most cases that human meat came from a body, and by desecrating that body you have committed a sin, so it is immoral to commit cannibalism because in most cases cannibalism involves desecrating the body. And it's, some might think that human meat might be considered dirty or disgusting, and that might, factor into the morality because you're eating human flesh. Isn't that, somewhat wrong? I mean, humans are made in the image of God, but as it's said in the Bible, nothing that enters one from outside can defile that person, but the things that come out from within are what defile. So eating human meat doesn't make you a bad person necessarily. It depends on how you got that meat. So if you killed someone and then ate their meat, that's bad. If you dig up a dead body and eat their meat, that's also bad. But there are some cases in which it can be considered acceptable to eat someone else's meat. Two examples where it could be morally permissible to eat human meat are when you're stranded and starving and you have no other viable options other than to consume human flesh, or if there is express and explicit consent Now, for the first one, it's more easy to understand why. Obviously, killing someone is still wrong, but if it is a survival situation and there are no other sources of food, it is considered morally permissible to eat human flesh from someone who has already died in order to survive and propagate human life. It's certainly not preferable, but it is still considered morally okay. Like, it's not great, but it's better than dying. And one particular case, when a plane crashed in the Chilean Andes, and there were several hundred people stranded, two Catholic theologians said that while there was a serious moral obligation to show respect for the dead, and that eating human flesh would be a breach of this obligation in almost all cases, cannibalism would be justifiable if there were no alternative. So if you are truly backed against a wall and you need to eat human flesh in order to survive, it is considered morally acceptable to do so. Now, the second option, consent, is obviously after post-mortem. It's still not considered morally acceptable to ask someone, hey, can I eat your arm? Even if they say yes, because it's disabling that arm and it's causing them pain. So a situation in which this might happen is that, on someone's deathbed, let's say that there's some master chef or master gourmet who has, spent their whole life traveling the world and wishing to taste all kinds of food. And the only meat that this man has not tasted yet is human flesh. And while he would certainly be interested in trying it, he's not about to go out of his way to eat someone. Now, one of his great friends, unfortunately, let's say, gets into a car accident, and with his dying breaths, he gives consent for the gourmet to eat his body in order to see what human flesh tastes like. Since he gave express consent, and since cannibalism is sort of a form of organ transplantation, this could be considered morally permissible. It's a bit more of a gray area on this because I don't think the Catechism has anything to say on consensual cannibalism, especially post-mortem. But I believe that since consent was involved and the person came to harm outside of the desire to eat human flesh, he died in a car accident, not because someone wanted to kill him and then eat his flesh, it would be considered morally okay for the gourmet to then eat his best friend's flesh, because it's what the friend wanted, it's what the gourmet wanted, and once again, it's not inherently morally bad to eat human flesh. It's usually the desecration of the body that is bad. So how will this issue affect us in the future? I believe that with this issue of organ donation, society at large and Catholicism agree on most everything. Consent is needed for organ donations. You can't just grab someone off the streets, take their kidney out, and then throw them out the window. And you can't debilitate another human, and, cutting off someone's arm to put on someone else's arm isn't exactly very nice. So forth, etc. Don't harm others in order to benefit yourself. And most people agree that cannibalism is pretty bad in most cases, but not in very dire circumstances. There are some that may disagree and say that cannibalism is never okay. But so far as Catholicism is concerned, it says that only in very dire circumstances is cannibalism okay. In the future, if cloning becomes more mainstream, the Catholic Church would most likely oppose using clones for just organ donations. This is something that may eventually happen. People may clone of themselves just to have as a backup in case they need some organs transferred over. This is obviously not morally acceptable, and cloning itself is morally not very good, But if the clone does get made, the Catholic Church would probably be against killing it, and they would probably be against using it for such purposes as just organ donations, as it violates the sanctity of human life, and even if it's post-mortem, it violates the sanctity of human death.